Dave. Welcome to the What Fills Your Cup podcast.
Thank you for having me.
To start off, what are we drinking today?
I believe we're having a Moscow Mule, and I guess we didn't bring in our PSL protein powder. We forgot that. Is that after?
We can do that after.
Okay.
But cheers.
Cheers.
I'm excited to.
Oh, this is the TikTok part where you're like, what are we drinking? Mm-hmm. This all gets clipped in. I'm new here. Sorry. I'm first time.
No, not first time. Okay, that's good.
Is this your first time having a Moscow Mule?
No, it is not, but I did do something different. Can you taste it?
No, tell me.
It's with pear vodka.
Oh.
Do you like it?
I do.
Because I thought it would be a different balance with like pear and ginger. If you tell me you're allergic to pear.
that could have ended terribly.
No, I know. Maybe I should never do that again.
I would clarify with the guest next time. Fortunately, I'm not allergic to
poisoned my guest.
It is really good, actually. It's delicious.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's kind of dangerous, the fact that you are a bartender. I see why you've incorporated this aspect.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm picking it up.
I'm glad you enjoy the drink, though.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that you are in the hot seat today. Interviewer is getting interviewed. So a fun little switch. But I did want to start off with the audience getting to know you a little bit. And for those that don't know, we actually grew up in the same hometown. Mm-hmm. But I would love for you to share a little bit about your upbringing, in where we grew up, sports, friends, family. I want to hear a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, White Rock, Surrey, British Columbia. Fortunate to grow up there for 17 and a half years before heading off to university at Brock out in St. Catharines. White Rock is a small town, as you learn once you leave. You know, you didn't realize growing up how grateful I was to see kind of mountains, ocean every day. We would wake up and we had that. But yeah, played sports growing up, was more introverted.
Okay.
In high school, elementary school, I would say, before going to university. Within the past 5 years, started a podcast, co-founded a female athlete agency, and then managing partnerships for a software development company called Expert VR. So been fortunate to just keep the gas pedal down for the past 27 and a half years, and been hopefully having some fun along the way.
Yes.
And enjoying the process, as cliche as that might sound. But
no, it's good.
Yeah, that's the minute and a half spiel, maybe.
That's the elevator pitch.
Sure. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So you played sports growing up.
Couple.
And I know one of them was hockey. You also have participated and played in junior golf tours. Mm-hmm. And as of recently, you actually just ran the Toronto Marathon. Congratulations. That is so very exciting. But I did want to ask, how have sports assisted you in not only your career with the Athletes Podcast, but also growing up and learning as an individual?
Sports is everything. Honestly, in my life, as crazy as that might sound, for those who kind of knew me during high school, I was not the best athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but I faced a ton of adversity. I feel like that's what propelled me into the position that I am today, and why I have a chip on my shoulder, or why I work so hard doing things for random reasons, is because I firmly believe there's an opportunity for people to make an impact in this world positively, whether that's entertaining, inspiring, and educating the next generation of athletes, whether that's talking about men's mental health. Anyone else has their own potential to achieve amazing things. Mm-hmm. And I think sports is a vehicle for people to be able to do that. We do it a ton when we're young, and then after high school ends, the majority of people stop moving their body. After 18, like something crazy like 95% of people will never sprint again.
Guilty. I'm only sprinting to the fridge, so
and that's the majority of people. Even me, like, I wasn't moving as much as I should have been, but I think sports teaches you that when you're young. We lose sight of that, and then hopefully with some of the things that I'm doing now, I can inspire others to continue moving, whether that's parents, friends, family, or people through the podcast. You know, it's one of the many things that I'm passionate about as well, and I think people should continue to aim to at least better themselves every single day in some way, shape, or form.
I think with your podcast, you have been able to inspire. We talked about this earlier again, myself included. I get a lot of inspiration from you. I think that what you're doing is very inspiring for people, that your listeners, your audience, friends, family, whatever age range they are. Your target is so broad. They can be just starting their sport career, or career for that matter, or they could be 70 and they could be figuring out ways on how they can move their body. But I feel like you have provided a great medium for individuals to come forward and talk, and also listen and hear, okay, this is what this person's story is. How could I maybe integrate that into my personal life? So talking about your podcast, I freaking love it. And you have interviewed, I freaking love it. And scene over. But you have interviewed Olympic gold medalists, former NHL players, professional coaches, entrepreneurs. The list seriously goes on. What made you interested in interviewing athletes, to put it shortly? And why do you believe that providing a space where they can share their stories is so important?
Really good question. I love that. You brought up the age range. I think that's really important. You know, I had Tyler Freeze on the episode, who broke the 24-hour world Murph record. He was 16. Cool to see where his mindset's at. And then you talk about someone who's maybe 60 plus. Richard Brodeur played for the Vancouver Canucks, goaltender. Whereas he's got stories for days, and I just had to sit there and smile, right?
Yeah.
So I think, to your question around why is it so important to have athletes on and to give them a platform to share their story, it's because they don't get that in our current media. And, you know, they get 60-second snippets after a game or after a practice, and then they're grilled for things that they did in the game prior, and, you know, they're still catching their breath from the lines that they just had to skate. For me, it's like, hey, these are human beings also, and they deserve an opportunity to share their stories, talk about the ups, the downs, everything in between. People love to be able to highlight what they're doing. Sometimes maybe they're not good at sharing what specifically makes them tick. Maybe you or I can pull that out of them, right?
Yes, totally.
That's the objective, and I think it also shines a light on these people so that they know that they're human, and that those other people watching see something and what is possible. Yeah.
Also giving room to maybe get an audience to understand that their identity isn't just their sport. And that's just a part of them, but actually underneath, like you said, they're a human being, and they have other things that make their personality, or them who they are, and individuality. Like, I think that is so cool and such a awesome perspective in terms of what you do. You're providing that perspective for your audience of, okay, well, for example, who is Dave and what does Dave like to do? Well, aside from all the businesses that you've created and are creating, it's like, okay, well, you have a lot of layers underneath, which I think is really cool. As an individual who has gotten the opportunity to interview athletes, what have you noticed, or what do you personally believe are some of the biggest challenges and mental battles that athletes face?
Yeah, I mean, imposter syndrome, I can speak to firsthand, and I know that others face it. You know, after 250 episodes, I still question whether I should be reaching out to, you know, certain athletes, certain Olympic competitors. It's, you know, just the nature of who we are as human beings, and how we consistently doubt ourselves. Something that's, you know, a constant battle is just making sure you're using positive self-talk in that.
Yes. Would you say that you would firmly support or advocate for individuals to just make sure that they are talking kindly to themselves then? Yeah. And what does that look like for you?
To be completely honest, it's more so catching myself when I speak negatively.
Okay.
So for me now, the bigger focus is actually eliminating that negative self-talk and catching myself before it happens. Yeah. And I think it's a daily battle. It's a work in progress.
I think for everyone, that is something. I actually use that as well. When I catch myself saying something not nice maybe to myself, I'm like, okay, well, why did I say that? Or why am I feeling that way? What's kind of the root of that issue maybe? And almost targeting that, and then saying something kind of like, okay, well, I might feel that way there, but in another aspect, I'm really proud of myself. That's a word I've been really trying to embrace, is the word proud. People should celebrate their own wins.
For sure.
And if you celebrate your own wins, or if you can be supportive of yourself, then at the end of the day, it's kind of like, I don't give a what you think, because I'm proud of what I've done and I'm good with what I've done. And as long as I can go to bed at night knowing I was a good person, I was kind, I am proud of how I handled myself today, then you're good. And that's going back to the positive self-talk. But I did want to go a bit behind the scenes with you and your podcast. Putting yourself online gives your audience and friends and family, whoever it may be, the medium to critique what you do. How have you navigated being in the public eye, and what are some of the tools that you use to ensure you aren't letting the fear of judgment hold you back from continuing to do what you love?
I was never really concerned about it 5 years ago when I started in my bedroom. It, to me, was just an extension of who I was, the conversations I wanted to be having. I'd be having stuff like this. Why not share it with the world?
Yeah.
If they like it, great.
Awesome.
If they don't, whatever. Go to the next link. Find
Yeah.
the next YouTube. Like, there's so much content
Thank you,
out
next.
there. So if you really don't like it, I'm not going to try and please everyone. That's what I've tried to come to terms with. I do also take into consideration what people say, think. I'm human.
Yes.
Everyone does. You have to take that with a grain of salt, filter out the good, the bad, the ugly.
You are very confident. From what I saw on your page, and even just in this conversation that we've been having, confidence is something I really admire and look for in people, because there's a difference between confident and cocky. And I think you are just confident. I don't think you're cocky. I don't have any reason to think that.
Thank you.
I think that the way you talk about yourself is led with confidence, and that is really hard to find, especially in our generation. But it does take a lot of confidence to get in front of a camera and interview individuals in general. So how have you been able to gain that confidence looking back to your first interview to where you are now interviewing over 250 individuals?
Yeah, I mean, I'll revert back to, like, when I graduated high school, I was an introvert. People knew me as, like, the quiet, shy guy.
Talk about a freaking
a
180.
a glow up, as the kids call them. Yeah, no, it's just like leaving for university was a big transition. Go out, independence, get on your own. And I think that was big for me. I highly recommend that for anyone who's going through. You don't have to go to university, but just, like, go out, become your own person if you can financially afford it. I think university is great if you can get that, if you can get scholarships like I did too. Like, that's a huge way to cover a ton of those costs and still get the 4 years of kind of vacation, we'll call it, that university is, where you get a great piece of paper afterwards for a bunch of debt. But literally, you're never gonna have 20,000 other people in the same 10 block radius that are all studying, working towards a similar goal, that are all academically motivated to some degree. Like, that's an amazing opportunity to meet really cool people that you're going to be lifelong friends with. Totally. So I highly recommend post-secondary education for that reason. And I also think that's what allowed me to, like, become a Brock Senate student council member, SPEMA council, like, and I was emceeing basketball, volleyball games, like, just came out of my shell and learned that, hey, you can have fun, you can become a part of these events. You don't necessarily need to be just one of the 5,000 in the crowd. You can stand out, you can be who you want to be at those games and be the exciting person banging on the drums.
Totally. So going from an introvert to then now you're in front of these crowds, like, what was it that switched? What was that period like for you in terms of, was it to make friends? Was it in terms of, I have been, and I'm using this in a respectful way, but more reserved?
Yeah.
What was that push for you?
Probably a combination of all the above. Like, I think I just had done a lot of listening, and I still do a lot of listening. And I think now, to your point, a bit more confident in actually acting on that. It took moving across the country and living on my own to realize that, hey, you got to be able to do this stuff on your own, right? Make a name for yourself.
Freedom.
Yeah, for sure. For those who know, it's definitely, like, there's something to be said for having that independence, and then knowing or realizing that it's all on you at the end of the day.
And owning a business as well is independence, and that is also all on you, which is a whole other side of things where it's like, okay, this is falling back on me. But again, with your confidence and coming out of your shell, let's say, maybe that's a better word to use, it seems as though it's worked very, very well for you.
Yeah, and I like that's from adding team members too, right? Like with Cook Stark Management, Lander Cook, principal agent, player agent there, and he's been phenomenal.
Sorry, I'm giggling because I thought you were saying like principal, like a school principal. I'm like, oh no, that's who you hired.
No, that's my mom. That's my mom. Aww. Yeah, no, but that's also, having an educator as a parent, that's huge.
That is huge.
Pays dividends long run. You don't realize it growing up, but all those pedagogical things, references make sense down the road. But yeah, I mean, having someone like Lander, now Eleni on the team for CSM, that's huge. Ryan with the Athletes podcast, and like, again, it goes back to working with people. I think I wasn't great at it growing up with staying connected with people and reaching out and, sending those quick texts or having those quick phone calls. And I'm still not, but I think it's really important to try and at least foster those relationships when you can. You never know where people are going to be down the road too, and who they're going to be working with and how they can potentially support you or you can support them. I think that's what's most exciting more than anything is like the people that we've been able to meet over the years.
I just slid in the DMs, so
that's what I have to do.
That's what works.
That's what I have to do for the majority of my guests. Right, we're probably 50-50 now, inbound to outbound.
I'm also selfish, like in a weird kind of messed up way. I'm actually also looking forward to that, because one day I want to be able to be like, I did reach out to you and you didn't want to come on, and now you want to come on because you're seeing what this has done, and I'm excited for now you to come on, and probably throw a joke in there because I like to laugh a bit. But
that's great that you have that mindset, because there's some people that would be like, screw you, no, I'm not having you.
I would just be like, silly, why didn't you do it earlier?
It took you so long.
Like, you silly little rascal. No, but I did also really want to talk about, because you own a business and because you're working multiple businesses, something that a lot of individuals struggle with is boundary setting. Your eyes just go, right when I say that. I would love for you to kind of touch on and discuss how you've been able to set healthy boundaries for yourself in terms of work and personal life, and what are some of the actions that you take to give yourself the space to protect your peace in balancing both of those.
Riley, I don't know if I'm the person to answer this question.
Next. No, that's okay.
I think for me to answer that, I've had to make tough decisions. I've had to set more boundaries. I've had to say no more to, playing hockey at 11 o'clock at night because it impacts my sleep negatively. But I'm still learning how to do a lot of that. And to keep it concise in this question, I'd say trying to take a more stoic approach. And a more unbiased, unfiltered opinion if I have opportunities to go to events, participate in fun things, do whatever. When you talk about boundaries, it's like, okay, what are my priorities? If it's fitness, health, family, friends, wellness, whatever the case may be, it's like, is this aligned or not with my future goals? Also,
being able to set personal boundaries of, okay, like you said, what are my limits and how do I play within them? I can say yes to things, but also understand time, place, when I can say no. So I actually think that it sounds like and like you are aware of, okay, I know the steps I need to take in terms of setting boundaries and ensuring that I'm protecting my peace. But that's a work in progress for everyone.
Yeah, and it's knowing how to do things and actually executing are two different. Right? Like, I know if I do push-ups, then I'm going to get stronger and probably build my chest muscles. Or people know if you spend 20 minutes on the treadmill every single day, you're probably going to lose weight over time. Do people do those things?
Do you?
But that's like, there's information out there on how to do everything. To answer your question, it's like, if you really want to do something, you can do it. Whether it's running a marathon, sub 4 hours, like I did, whether it's, deadlifting 400 or 500 pounds, whether it's interviewing world-class athletes, whether it's starting your own podcast, all you have to do is probably a little bit of research, probably a little bit of planning, a little bit of reverse engineering, how you're going to execute that plan, and then execute. And if you can rip that band-aid off and start to do something, world's your oyster, right?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Do you like oysters?
I love them.
Oh, okay.
There's an oyster theory I don't know. It's Gary Vaynerchuk, who's this hat.
I love that hat.
Thank you. It's the Loyal Lobster. I don't know if the thing's on there, but he mentions like an oyster theory where if you're out on a date or something and you ask, have you had oysters? Or do you want an oyster? It's like most people automatically don't want oysters because they just have a negative association with them or they've never tried them.
Really?
It's because we live on the West Coast.
Okay, so I wasn't supposed to ask you if you liked oysters.
No, I mean, most people now are more familiar, but now it's like, if you're out on a date and you get oysters, you can tell pretty quickly whether someone's adventurous or willing to try new things, because oysters,
yeah, they are like
it's a texture thing.
It's a texture thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a tongue. Maybe that's not the right word. One of my last questions for you is, if you were to give someone one tool that has helped you in your mental health journey, what would it be and why?
Exercise.
Dopamine, it's great for that.
It's crazy. Most people have experienced it to some degree at some point in their life. Yeah. Probably if it hasn't been most recently, then you don't know or you're not aware of how good it feels.
Yeah.
But I try and do some type of morning movement, some type of walk, some type of gym session, sauna session, whatever it is. Like, if you get that blood flowing, there's literally happy chemicals in our muscles that are released when you move and flex them. And it's free. The stimulation you get from a 15-20 minute walk in your brain is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And we're in a constant state of stagnation where people are sitting at their desks, scrolling TikTok, sitting on their couches, and we are not moving our bodies enough. Yeah. Especially for those who have the ability to. You should be so grateful to have 4 working limbs, everything operating normally. Like, there's people out there who don't have that luxury and who are still working 10 times harder, who are accomplishing amazing feats, who are doing 7 marathons in 7 days with one lung. Like, there's some phenomenal people out there in this world, and the one thing I'd say is, like, that's what has inspired me with the podcast, is I get to meet these incredible people, and now I get to hopefully shed a bit of that inspiration off with others, make people realize that, we have an amazing opportunity when we're born on this earth to do something. I don't know, I'm passionate about people pursuing whatever they want to be. If you're just going through life checking boxes, it's probably not going to be the most fulfilling thing. No. And I think there's a heck of a lot of good that you can do in the world, hopefully at the same time. Hopefully have fun along the way.
Exactly.
It's taken a long time to learn that too, though, Riley. So
I don't doubt that.
I say all these things, but
you're so wise.
We got to execute still,
Yes. The last question, I ask each of my guests is, what is your favorite thing about yourself and why?
Wow. See, this is tricky because you hadn't put out any episodes yet before recording this, so I didn't know this was going to be that last question. That's a good one. What is my favorite thing about myself and why? I think my tenacity. Okay. I take pride in my tenacious nature to, pursue whatever I'm looking to achieve at that moment. I think it's something that our generation doesn't necessarily have as much of, that gumption, that grit. And I think that's what sets me apart, and I am grateful that I had parents, grandparents, family members, coaches who instilled that in some way, shape, or form over the years. The flip side 180 of that is also I take pride in my IQ as much as my EQ, to really know that in certain situations being aggressive might not be the best approach, but at times it is needed. So just being able to balance those things, so the tenacious nature and EQ over IQ would be those answers. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that about you. And I
Thank
love
you.
that you love that about yourself. I love hearing what each person likes about themselves, because I feel like people don't get asked that question enough.
I've never been asked that question.
Really?
Not in recent memory, that's for sure.
2 guys said the same thing. They're
Yeah.
like, no one's ever asked me that. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? That's a good question. What's your favorite thing about yourself and why? Like, I don't know.
That's a great question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm full of them. That does conclude this podcast interview. Dave, thank you so very much for coming on the What Fills Your Cup podcast. I'm sure we'll be in touch very soon.
Yeah. Thank you for filling my cup today.
Oh, that was so sweet. To sign off, I love you. And if you haven't heard it today, don't forget to tell someone you love them, because you never know who needs it a little extra. Bye, everyone.
Peace. Love ya.
Love ya.